that we sit on Facebook and just answer and just, oh, I had a cup of tea. No, we just had tuna for lunch. No, okay. It's a way for you to identify, well, these are the people I want. I have got some questions. I heard you talk about some things, and I'm interested in getting some more information. That's what I mean when I say, we have a Facebook presence. And this is community television, so this is the way that we have to express to you how to communicate with us. And when I say we're available, we are available, but you'll call our office, you'll get a phone number, or you'll get an email address, and you'll contact us, or you'll call our office. And I can tell you now that, my office phone says someone will return your call in 24 hours, because if all I do is sit on a telephone and answer phones, I don't get your work done.
Not at all.
Right, I can't answer the phone all day. I can't even answer email throughout the day. Even my own kids will say, Mom, I called you 3 days ago. I'm like, yeah, but it's the middle of tax season, so you gotta wait till June or July. No,
They get the 3-day voicemail.
Yeah, the 3-day right? They get the 3-day voicemail or something. So just recognize that we don't ignore anyone. We don't ignore anyone. We do take your calls. We look at the questions. We get back in touch with you. But it might not be within the next 5 minutes. But if you're in a situation where you're really in a real situation, not just a scam type, because now we've given you enough information where you should be able to identify, this sounds like a scam, you know. So now you're in a situation, but if you're in a situation where, oh, I've got to call Michelle and Carter, and I got to have something done within the next 5 minutes, you've been sitting on something longer than you should have.
Yes,
okay.
definitely.
Okay, so that's one of the things that we're going to delve into, and that is, in terms of managing your tax life, is if IRS or any taxing agency contacts you, because you have federal taxes, you have state taxes, you have local taxes now.
Exactly.
And if any of them contact you and identifies that you need to contact them and you don't, and now they're really legitimately coming after you, and you think we can stop them? Well, we can get involved and we can maybe slow it down, but it doesn't mean that we're going to take away the tax liability that exists.
Right.
We can do some things and work with it and so forth. So it's reality. It's there's no quick fix. I've had a lot of clients over the years who have been in big tax trouble, and I get it done. It may take 3 years, but we get it done. Okay, so stay with us. We'll be right back. This is Tax Central. Hi, welcome back. This is Tax Central. I'm your host, Michelle Alexander. I forgot my name for a minute. Here today with my co-host and colleague, James Carter. So now we're going to talk to you about managing your tax life. And I believe Carter has some things that he wants to begin with. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Well, the first thing when it comes to managing your tax life, just as you may be able to see here, we have a bunch of documents spread out, a bunch of information that we have together. The primary thing you want to do is gather all of your documents together that you know that you will need. As check all your resources. Go back to your websites and things like that. Make sure you have everything together. And the other thing is talk to your advisors. Again, get some help. Talk to people that you know or trust, or contact us, just as you're saying you were going through Facebook. The first actual tax return you'll ever do is a W-4. You know, you will get your tax life together in order to know exactly what you'll be spending. You know, so that you know. And when you look at that, those are your employer in that situation will judge by your first tax bracket how much they are going to deduct from taxes from you, federal, state, and local. The federal basically is based in different tiers, and based on where you're going with that again, that's something else you want to you want to get to know and get some advice on where you're going, and have your thresholds together. The other thing is you want to, if you're a person that has multiple sources of income, you also want to be able to have an understanding of where those thresholds are going, because you have different employers that are going to come into play, but they don't see the different thresholds because they only have one source that you're paying from. So again, it's a matter of gathering all those pieces of information together. The other thing is as I was discussing before, when you have a change in your employment, again, it's almost like working multiple jobs, to where you are an individual where your first employer is only looking at your threshold from one standpoint, but the next employer is not seeing the prior one. Right. So they may be looking at your threshold from the same one as your first employer, and you will never get that increase in maybe your tax liability because of that. So if you run into those situations, again, spread out all your documents and then check all your resources so that you know exactly where you're going in that situation. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, okay, and just to give you, if I can, give you an example, you have, let me see if I can do this way. All right, you have job A. Ooh, job A just went down the drain. I just lost job A. All right, job A. You have job B. You have job C. You have job D. You have job E. Yes, there are people who come in they've got so many W-2s, okay. And what happens is with this job, as Carter just told you, there's a threshold. Threshold meaning you're falling between this level and this level of income on the withholding chart. On this job, you're not even reaching the chart because it's part-time. Yes. So you're not getting any taxes taken out. On this job, you're not getting any taxes taken out because you're not reaching the threshold. On this job, you have some taxes taken out, but not enough. And on this job, you have no taxes taken out. Right. Now you've got 3 jobs, so you've earned money that no withholding came out. So all of the withholding that came out of these jobs has to support this income as well.
Exactly.
It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. So that's when we talk about thresholds, that's what we're talking about. You have to know how to manage this. Exactly. We're not saying don't go out and earn, work multiple jobs. Just you have to know how to manage your tax life in order to make all that work for you.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, because it works perfectly. And even in Michelle's example, let's assume one of those jobs is something that you learned, a skill that you have, that you've learned to do on your own. In that situation, there is no employer to make those tax deductions for you.
That's correct.
And when you are an independent contractor, or a self-employed individual, you are actually responsible for what is known the Social Security taxes that are payable to the federal government.
Right.
As an employee, you are paying only half of your Social Security taxes that are being deducted from your paycheck. Your employer, in turn, is actually paying the other half out of his profits.
Fact or fiction? Is it a fact that if you're an employer with employees, your share, the employer's share of withholding comes from also from the employee?
No.
Myth.
Myth.
Fiction. It comes from the employer. Where does the employer get it from?
Has to earn it.
Their profit. And a lot of people they don't connect the dots.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people who try to pay employees, they say, well, I took his taxes out of his money. Yeah, but where's your portion?
Right.
Okay. Well, where's that coming from? Out of your pocket. Because that's what it costs to be an employer.
Yes, it is.
That's what it costs to be an employer. So, okay.
And in turn,
And then
when you
When
become
you
that employer and
Right.
the employee, you are paying both ends.
Right.
So that actually, they call that on your tax forms, or in this case, it's called the self-employment tax.
Right.
Which is basically the employee as the guy that goes out and makes the money, and then the employer who actually goes home at night and counts up all those receipts.
Right. Exactly.
You're actually the person that's going to pay both halves of that, is that Social Security tax.
Exactly.
So it's important, again, to in understanding that, to consult individuals who know and can help you make those plans, because that is actually the highest tax. It's a payroll tax.
It's a payroll tax.
That
That's right.
the IRS is really looking into as an employer, and they usually come after those first.
Oh, absolutely. You don't do I just refer to it as the 941s. You
Yes.
don't do your 941s. That's trust money. When you're an employer, and even if you're self-employed, you're your own trustee.
Yes.
So you're you need to pull that money out, and you need to send into IRS the 941 taxes and so forth. And when you don't do it, it becomes a trust issue.
Yes.
And that's statutory, which means they can shut you down and put you in jail because
Right.
you're stealing, so it has large implications. So people say all the time, well, I want to run a business, I want to become a corporation, and you have to understand what it means to be a corporate employer.
Yes.
It has an awesome responsibility. That corporate employer, this is your corporation. It's like a child. You can't drop it. You can't abuse it. Just like CYF will get you
Yes.
if you do something to your child. Well, the authorities will come and get you if you abuse that corporation. If you treat it and you're taking money from it and not doing it the way, handling corporately your books and being accountable and so forth according to the statute and the way it's set up to do, they'll come and get you.
Yes, exactly.
So again, we're your resource. We can help you, we can guide you, we can help direct you so that you're always operating using facts and not myths.
Right.
Okay. One of the things I do want to bring up, when you talked about the thresholds and the W-4, because that's where it does start with the W-4. If you're single and you get married, your tax life changes.
Yeah, drastically.
Drastically. Your tax life changes. If you're married and now you're single, unfortunately,
Right.
then your tax life changes. So you need to know how to always, always, always manage your tax life. As long as you are between the age of, I'd say 0 and 100, even though we know the age 0 they don't file a tax return, but you do have little children who earn money.
Yes.
Okay? And so you can't sit down with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-month-old or whatever and just, go through all of this, but we can sit down with their parents and help them to identify how the best way to manage not only their tax life, but their child's tax life
Yes.
as well. As they grow up, they can grow up knowing how they should do this. But if you're just married, if you're single and you're getting married, things are going to change. And you need to know, because we know that one of the things that hits marriages hardest is finances.
Yes.
So you don't want to fight about other things. He didn't take out the garbage. He left his socks on the floor.
A light on.
The light on, right, or something. Don't fight about money. It's not worth it, okay? Let us help you so that you don't have to fight about money.
Yes.
Managing your tax life will help you to not fight about money, because within all of this, comes budgeting. We don't set them up for you, but you learn how to better budget
Oh, yes.
because your tax life is set up. So, no, you know, these are the things that you have to do in order to have that good financial life.
Oh, yes.
I remember when I first started working, this was culture shock to me. I was not having it. I was like, what? They're taking my money? What are these little boxes? Who is FICA and why am I paying them this money? So I had to go find out because I knew that if they tell me I'm earning $30,000, but when I get my check, it's only adding up to $12,000.
Yes.
I got to live on $12,000. I'm earning this. So what's going on here? All right.
We always hear that big number.
Yeah, you always hear the big number, but that's not the number, you know, that you're gonna live on. But that's what happens. People live on that number. They think they can live on that number. You can't live on that number, even when you're self-employed.
Yes, exactly.
You cannot live on your gross income. You have to get those taxes out, and you also, you know, once that's done, then you look at your living expenses, and then you have something after that called disposable income,
Right.
after all the bills are paid. So that's the progression, and that's what we do. So, okay, all right, so we're talking about how to better manage your tax life. So just as a short recap, you talked about the threshold,
Yes.
working multiple jobs, withholding. Our commercials are showing some facts and myths,
Great, great.
and so forth. I think the largest group of people who run into tax myths are the small business person.
Oh, yes.
Did you run into that experience too?
Definitely, definitely. You know, that person who doesn't expect to make a lot of money, and you, when it really comes down to it, you don't. But I mean, there's the difference between what we call revenue and actual income.
Right.
You know, and
right.
what you don't see is where it all goes because you're so busy being that, you know, two-party person.
Right.
And it's
right,
important
right,
to. I mean, it's important to take that last few minutes or whatever time is left to make sure, as you said, you're doing your own, you know, your tax planning.
Right.
You know, because it is your own personal planning as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Whew, I'm tired. I know. But I hope that this has been very helpful. I know it's been very helpful, and it always helps us as we discuss things. There are always new and exciting things that come to mind.
Yes.
Even though, you know, this is something that I've practiced for over 40 years. I didn't start in kindergarten, I know, but I've been doing this a very, very long time. And James has been at this for a very, very long time.
Exactly.
So we hope that, you know, today's show has given you some insight into how to protect yourself against scammers. They're out there. Don't pretend that they're going to go away just because April 15th is gone. They're still out there, and they're busy. They're very busy.
Very.
We've talked about some of the best practices to use of how to manage your tax life. You know, gathering your information, identifying what's going on. You know, especially you think you get your paycheck, for example, going back to that threshold. You get your paycheck and you say, well, they're taking taxes out. Yeah, Social Security, Medicare, but there's nothing coming out of federal withholding.
Yeah,
so you really have to be detailed. You really have to be specific when it comes to, because I've had a woman who for 3 years has been trying to get her withholding increase, and for some reason every year it's like showing zero, and she's in trouble, you know.
Wow.
So we're here. We'll be back. Like I said, today is April 17th. The show will run in May, but at the end of May, we'll tape another show, and we're going to continue to talk about the different tax matters to help you balance things, get your tax life back in order or in order. And until then, this is Tax Central. I'm Michelle Alexander, your host, along with my colleague James Carter, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.
you.